Oh,
You're muted.
And that's just what I was going to say. You can tell it's hot again down in East London because the keyboard is not responding and everything is sticky again. Welcome to Together Unlocked. No inappropriate laughter there, please. I'm Ju Gosling, also known as the artist Ju90. I'm artistic director of Together 2012, who are bringing you this live stream today. With me in my East London studio is our chair, the artist Julie Newman. Before we have some audio description, we will go over to the West Midlands and have some introductions and audio description from the other half of our team on our very long wheeled virtual sofa.
yes. Good afternoon. Hi, I am Robin Surgeonator. I'm business director at Together 2012 and one of the co-hosts of Unlocked. We're up here in the West Midlands studio, and the weather that London has been having has finally reached us. It is gorgeous outside today, which is great. So, who am I? As I said, I'm Robin, and today I am sporting nicely slicked grey hair, no rimmed black armed glasses, cleanly shaven, and I'm wearing a checkered salmon grey and white checked shirt with short sleeves, proper button up posh one, something like that. Sounds about right. Anyway, what do you think, Josh?
I mean, just about.
Thank you.
You do like to waffle on with unhelpfully descriptive descriptions. So I am Josh Surgeonator. I'm also one of the hosts of Together TV, and I am a PhD research student. I have swept over long blonde hair, a little bit of some face hair growing, because I haven't shaved it yet. And I'm wearing a blue t-shirt that has a kind of white neck collar area, and then I'm also wearing a light blue base layer because it was very cold when I got dressed this morning, and I had to get up at 5 to go to work.
And was that virtual work?
No, that was real in the world work. It was very scary.
Oh, we might hear a bit more about that then, because we always have a chat about the weekend on a Monday. But first, as previously, I'm Ju Gosling. I have a short self-inflicted hennaed red corona crop, mostly hidden under what I'm told is an adult hairband. I'm actually wearing this to celebrate the first of our new Monday features, Relax with Awa, which is coming up at the end of the show. I've also got, in celebration of the continuing summer, an orange t-shirt on which says, I believe, hot tuna, with a picture of a fish on it. I've got black plastic glasses, black wrist braces, and silver jewellery, including a silver fish skeleton hanging around my neck to continue the hot tuna theme. Possibly because they're also endangered. I have to say, Josh, I really like the description of the salmon pink, but that's I'm more of a visual artist. So, Julie, who are you and what do you look like?
I'm Julie Newman. I'm the chair of Together 2012. I'm currently sitting here with gold and silver hair today. I have dark rimmed glasses. I'm wearing a white t-shirt which says Choose Love. And I've got a cheap smartwatch.
And no jewellery at all today.
I forgot it.
Oh, I was going to say, was that because of the heat?
No, I forgot
no.
it. I was in a bit of a rush earlier on.
So we run a disabled-led arts programme throughout the year with a month-long festival in November and December for Disability History Month. This year will be no exception, and you'll be able to join in it all from home. We also deliver a year-round programme which we call our clubs programme, which is free for disabled people and anybody they want to bring with them. We're going to play you a video a bit later about how you can join in with that clubs programme from home, whether you are disabled or not. And this programme indeed is also part of our join in from home offer. So, first of all, on a Friday, we have something for the weekend where we recommend lots of things to do over the weekend, online and offline. How did people get on?
Well, I did actually get to listen to a little bit of club music, which was kind of interesting. I mean, it's not always my thing, and I have to find the right stuff. I think I'm more into the dirty, grungy end of club music than the pop end. But hey, that's probably much to do with my history as a punky whatever. But yeah, but all that, I mean, that being said, it's surprising actually how infectious a good rhythm is, irrespective of its kind of genre. I think actually you get that rhythm gets you, and I do see how that kind of I was going to say mob mentality. I don't think that's quite the right description, but the crowd mentality, then, if you like, of how when like that groove goes off and everybody is doing it. And I guess it's like when we used to pogo to punk bands.
Mosh mentality.
Yeah, mosh mentality. That will do. So yeah, so actually, I did manage to follow up on some of my recommendations for the weekend.
Yeah, I followed up on mine. I watched some amazing tennis over the weekend in the wheelchair doubles, the wheelchair singles, and then the women's singles final as well on Saturday evening. Some excellent tennis played. Watched the Formula One, which was suitably crackers. It was quite a crazy one. I didn't listen to any music over the weekend. I do like a bit of kind of dance music, kind of hacienda type kind of rhythm. That's way before my time. I know. You can't really go anymore. I don't know if it still exists as a club, but
Hacienda.
or at least not in the
Actually, but
not in the style of where the name comes from. Anyway.
No, and how about you, Julie?
I enjoyed the first bit of the box set of Battlestar Galactica and remembered why I liked it so much. Yeah, I just think it's so good. And I think for the time it was quite ahead of itself, actually. The characterization is very good, and the filming is excellent. I had a quick look at some of the other paintings at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, and again remembered why I like a whole range of particular artists, and it was very interesting to think back to when I first had contact with them, which was a very, very long time ago. And my dad used to go away on business trips and bring me back art pictures, books, sort of. So I wasn't very well. I was in institutions at the time and I couldn't read. So having the pictures was amazing, and they were really, really meaningful. And it was helpful to remember those things.
Yes, I mean, I think as we always say, if you are stay creative and at the moment to stay home, it's such a way to stay well. I've spent most of my weekend doing DIY, or as Julie said on the phone, she's doing it herself. And that was for two reasons, really. We don't have enough PPE to have social care workers in, let alone handy people. And actually, it's really hard to find them anyway. I think that might be a London thing, but it is particularly hard in London to find people to come in to help. So I have been doing it myself. I'm just trying to switch this text off at the same time, which is probably incredible.
Keep zooming in and out.
Multitasking.
Yes, well, the zooming in and out I have no control over. We use a platform called Be Live on the Open Broadcasting System, and it's a technical miracle, really. But as with everybody who's using it, there are, I'm afraid, a few limits. So, yes, I'm experimenting with doing it well enough. I know I'm not strong enough physically or any other way to do it well, but I'm also getting into power tools in a big way. I think it's unrealistic to expect going forward as disabled people we're going to have the level of help we had in the past, and I think we're going to have to get used to doing it ourselves much, much more. But my goal is simply being to make sure that no repair that needs doing becomes urgent before the pandemic is at a point when I can get building work, when I can get other people in to do it. So I spent the weekend doing it myself. And actually, that was also, as Julie pointed out while she was sitting in bed watching me, very, very creative. If you're not doing your usual studio work, and actually, I have done a lot less hands on artwork than I would usually have done in the last 6 months. It's a way of just sublimating it, isn't it? Why not get to the kitchen door and sit on the floor and do the rotten doorpost instead? But the other thing I found really difficult over these months is seeing on a Wednesday, for anybody who's just joined us, we have a virtual nature watch with the assistance dogs. And every time Precious came in through the door, I would see it kind of falling to bits, thinking that is just going to have to get sorted out. So I've been discovering the joys of wood hardeners and fillers and such like, and I'm continuing to investigate ways that people without much muscle strength can do these things for themselves. However, I'm going to stop short of introducing a new DIY section. You'll all be pleased to know.
I do think the image of Rosie the Riveter has taken a very interesting turn.
Well, don't worry, you won't be getting me doing DIY. When I was an apprentice, I was an apprentice toolmaker. That's like an engineer, and as an apprentice, you know, it's traditional to be given the rubbish jobs. And at one point, they wanted me to paint the bins where all the cut off metal went. They were called slurry bins. And I managed to do such a bad job, not intentionally. I managed to make the paint run on the rubbish bins so badly that they never let me paint anything else again, ever.
It's interesting talking about kind of the satisfaction of doing kind of DIY projects. I like making things, and if I had the space to do it, I'd make stuff all the time, or the tools, or any of the ability creatively to build things. I had to do some wheelchair maintenance the other day on my front wheels, and we were talking about that. It's just really enjoyable to do. It's kind of really relaxing to kind of just do stuff with your hands. And then it led into a conversation with me and Mum about how, I like kind of enjoy building things, but don't have a workshop to do any of it in. So
it's a different part of your brain. I think that's how it works. So that's how occupational therapy has worked previously in the past. It engages a different part of your brain other than cognitive thinking and, sort of putting words into your brain. It's a different part of your brain completely. And I think that you're absolutely right. It's very relaxing.
I think the other thing I've found, because we literally fortunately, we haven't needed to leave the house since March, is my wheelchair skills. My fitness from using the wheelchair, using the stick to get in and out of the car and so on. I haven't been using that. So, I have very painful hands and I have a very poor grip, but it's not very good for them to be doing DIY, but I'm sure it's good for lots of other bits of my body, And I guess, again, it's that trade-off, isn't it? Well, you used to have to be more careful than you can afford to be when you're being very, very careful in other ways. And our priority has to be covered secure. So before we move on to our regular Monday update, what happened this morning, Josh, when you left the house? Because I think we're all always interested as shielders in the experiences when you do go out.
It was strange, having not really gone out since March, other than a couple of kind of hospital trips, and then to move house. I started last week, so I started last Monday, so I'd done kind of 3 sessions, and it's bizarre. Everyone's kind of doing their best to social distance, or sometimes they do forget, but it's normally amongst each other. But it's really weird. I've kind of turned into a germaphobe almost. Anti-back everything. There's no almost about it. I've turned in. If I could carry around a fire truck of Dettol, I would, and just kind of spray it at people. But yeah, I always I keep catching myself, like people be talking, and I just kind of back slowly away, even though it's kind of 2 meters. I keep doing it, and I almost kind of catch myself going, like almost going to apologize, like I'm not being rude. I'm like, actually, no, like I'm I don't need to, like I'm just kind of keeping my distance. So it is strange, and it is something to get used to, but.
It sounds like you're doing everything the government wants you to do and the community needs you to do, which is do what you have to do, but do it carefully. And, I think all these comparisons with flu are very unhelpful, not just because it's much more severe, but because it's much more contagious. And that's the real reason for, people think these things are extreme, but COVID is as contagious as Ebola. Fortunately, it's not as dangerous as Ebola, but it is as contagious as Ebola. So I must say, I'm waiting for the smart clothing. I'm happy to go about in a back brace. I'm happy to go about in a wheelchair. I'm happy to go about in a spacesuit. You know, please, 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 can we soon, before the winter's end, have some proper protection? Yeah, I mean, I just think it's time for us to have our spacesuits that we hose down at the front door and Trillar, if I can breathe in a mask, I'm sure I can manage something else. LG apparently have announced a mask that it cleans itself. It has UV light in the case, but it's battery operated with recyclable batteries or rechargeable batteries, and it filters the air automatically. So I think we've kind of lost track of the fact that the fashion industry have been promising us smart clothing for at least 2 decades.
Yeah.
We really need
They might finally get around to it. Yeah.
so ever so quiet. Please, fashion industry, the demand is absolutely there. Now is the time for that virus and bacteria proof clothing that you've been promising us and everything else. But we will move on formally to our regular update feature. We heard on Friday that on Thursday, the 24th of September, the app is going national. I can confirm it is going to continue to be known as the NHS COVID-19 app. There was some discussion about whether that was the right name, but all of the consultation in Newham has confirmed it is. So I'm just going to put on a 2-minute film from our own Sahira Khan. It's excerpted from a longer film, which you can find on our films page or indeed our highlights and links page. And that longer film, WhatsApp Auntie, will tell you everything you need to know about the app. So this is just about one aspect.
WhatsApp Auntie.
What are you looking at?
The new NHS COVID-19 app, Auntie.
What's that?
It's a new way to fight coronavirus using our phones. It'll help everyone to protect each other and save lives. Let me explain. The app works in 6 different ways. If you become ill, the app helps you to check if you have coronavirus symptoms. If you do have coronavirus symptoms, the app helps you to book a test. This test can be carried out at home, at a walk-in centre, or at a drive-in centre. If you do test positive for coronavirus, you tell the app on your phone. Then you isolate, which is stay at home alone, for 2 weeks after your symptoms started. After that, you should no longer be infectious. While you're isolating, the app provides you with advice and support. Isolating is essential to stop the virus spreading. The app tells all of the phones that have been closer to you than 2 meters for at least 15 minutes over the past 2 weeks. The apps on those phones then alert their owners to isolate in case they're infected too. They can then book their own tests using the app.
Will you help me to install the app now, please?
Yes, of course, Auntie. Support the app. Support the NHS. Save lives.
So that was Sahira Khan with Radhika Bainan and Sarifa Patel doing the voiceovers. I think, everybody realizes that over the last week, the situation has got much more serious. So it's great to see that the app is almost ready to go. We're very proud to be able to, trial it and give as much feedback as possible. That process is still taking place in Newham. So if you live in Newham and you haven't downloaded the app yet, it's very simple and straightforward. Do have a go. Let us know, or indeed let the app team know directly. How did you find it? Was there anything that you found confusing? Was there anything unclear? Was there anything else you would have liked to have seen? How easy was it? Did you find any aspect inaccessible? If you're a business and you've been asked to print a QR code poster, how was that for you? But if you don't live in Newham, we still want to know, generally speaking, what do you love about apps? What do you loathe about apps? What are your favorite art apps? And anything else that you think you can tell us that could be of help. We know there are problems with the testing and so on. I think that's just inevitable when the whole country and indeed the whole world is competing to set up systems that they've never done before and they had no notice of. But if you look at the effectiveness of the app, if just 1 in 5 of us downloaded it, it would be more effective on its own than test and trace on its own. So it really, really shows the benefit. And if you look at the test and trace data at the moment, sorry, I have aphasia, which really doesn't help on these occasions. If you look at that data, a lot of people can't supply their contacts because they don't know who they were. You know, they sat next to somebody on a train for an hour and a half, but obviously they don't know who they were. But your phone will know. And of course, this system is so great because it is completely anonymous. All of the data is stored on your phone. None of that data gets shared. And if you do test positive and you give them permission, again, it's the phone that is doing the contacting. None of those contacts are passed on directly. How's it been under the new lockdown rules in the West Midlands over the weekend, guys?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing I want to say is about the app is I think we have to do everything to promote it positively. And as soon as, if you can get someone from your way to do some, 15-second pieces just saying it worked for me, we've done this, how easy it was, to really engender trust in the process, because as you've just said, there is some testing issues, and we want to make sure that there is faith in the process of using the app. Otherwise people just won't use it, and that would be disastrous irrespective of the financial cost. In terms of Birmingham, I mean, I think not a huge amount of change from our point of view, because we've, like yourselves, we haven't been doing lots of partying as such. The sports stuff is going on because it is in that controlled, safe environment. But I think I only think it's a good thing that they're not, they want to make sure that they prioritize schools over pubs, for example. I mean, whether, it is really, really important. The biggest change, I think, is that they've announced that in school children, senior school children, now have to wear masks when transferring anywhere around the school. So the only time they shouldn't be wearing masks is in classroom, and when obviously eating their lunches when they're in that static position.
Yeah, I know kind of, obviously Birmingham has additional lockdown things, which I think come into effect tomorrow. Why they waited kind of 4 days, 5 days, it's a separate conversation. But anyway,
no publicity.
Yeah, there's no real publicity, and kind of things that I've seen or kind of heard on local news, or joke, things on Facebook or whatever that you see through the friend of a friend of a friend. It's like, well, they're not going to know, are they? And it's like, that's not the attitude that we need, I think. But on a positive, with the app, it's launched at the end of September, which is great because that's going to kind of coincide with universities going back. I think Welcome Week is this week or next week for lots of places. So you've got a kind of huge influx of young people into a city, and they're going to be mixing as much as universities are kind of doing their best to do things online and stuff like that. You've still got to kind of move into uni accommodation, and there's going to be things that you kind of have to go to in person, to kind of enroll and all those types of things, pick up all your stuff. Having the app in place for that, or at least around that time, assuming it gets good uptake, is going to be so important. And the uptake of it at that point is going to be so important, because
sorry to interrupt you, I'm just going to put your camera on solo so Julie can get out our assistant's dog, or one of them barking. So I didn't want to do that in case you thought we had suddenly got lost from the broadcast.
Yeah, that's fine.
Of course. So we may or may not see Julie again after the film that follows this. Yes, I mean, I think the great thing about the app, like I say, is it's automated. It's not dependent on anybody else. I'm going to say...
Yeah, I think what Ju is saying, the app runs in the background. You don't really need to, other than kind of the initial sign up and put in where you are, in order to kind of for your local area, and then it can direct you, if it needs to. That you don't need to kind of go in and say day to day, I was at home for 6 hours and I was somewhere else. All you need to do is kind of walk in, scan a code on the wall, pop your phone away. That's it.
I mean, I would hope that actually the student unions are being given like a whole positive role in making sure that all students are aware of it and what have you, so that it has actually go out to everybody, to as many people, and so that the unions themselves, so the university buildings, for example, and bars, make it almost a compulsory thing, so it becomes almost habitual. Or look, there's the QR code, I'll go and do it.
Yeah, and I think
compulsory, and I think that's something to be clear about what they call hospitality venues. If it's something like a student bar, a restaurant, or a cafe, one of the changes the government announced last week was that it is now compulsory to take people's details. What the app developers are hoping is that the app will be classified as a medical device. Now, if it is classified as a medical device and you use the app, you won't have to leave your details manually. And I think for people who are concerned about privacy, that really is going to be helpful. But of course, there's no promises. The critical thing is if you go into a venue, they have to know how to contact you. And if that's able to be done anonymously through the app, how brilliant. I mean, I've already noticed that I get a weekly text just saying to me that I've not come into contact with anybody who's infected. One of the reasons I find that comforting is I know I haven't.
Yeah.
But
it's nice to kind of have that reassurance almost.
Well, what it reassures me is that the app works.
Well, yeah, that as well.
That's the reassuring thing.
Yeah.
As long as it keeps telling me I haven't sat within 2 meters of somebody for 15 minutes or longer when I know I haven't, that to me is just kind of the icing on the cake to say that this is working. But it's based on a Google and Apple system that's already been trialed around the UK and elsewhere. I think there's not really much that isn't going to be as good as it can get without mass rollout. And of course, once you get millions of people using it, of course there's going to be tweaks, but every app is tweaked. I mean, it's just par for the course, isn't it? What art apps? I know you have been talking about an app that you're learning to draw with, and you've also been watching videos. Have you got any more information you'd like to share with us about that, Josh?
Yeah, I've been using Sketchbook initially, which is a free app that has kind of different drawing tools in it. There's kind of the whole range of brushes, from kind of fine liner or pencil through to basically kind of watercolor splashes. It's all digital, so you can get that kind of washed out kind of blotty style, but you don't have to actually kind of do anything for it. You don't need to know how to mix all the paint. You can just select your color. And then it has guides. If you want to draw a straight line, you can press a button and it'll give you a thing, and then you just put it where you want and then draw wherever, and it will only draw on where that line is.
That sounds much more straightforward than some of the apps I've used. I use Photoshop a lot for my photography, but I found anything that involves drawing lines and freehand in those apps I find really, really difficult. So Sketchbook sounds much more straightforward.
Yeah, and then I was gonna say I've now started trying Photoshop as well, just to kind of see the differences between the two. Kind of, Sketchbook has things that I prefer over Photoshop. Photoshop has things that I prefer over Sketchbook. I will say I found it easier using Photoshop. Two lovely people brought me a starter graphics tablet for my birthday a few weeks ago. So I've been kind of playing around with that and kind of learning how to use that, and that's a weird experience. But what I found works quite well for me, or I'm practicing, is actually drawing it on paper, kind of drawing it physically, scanning that in, and then almost tracing my own drawing, kind of copying the lines digitally, which gives you the really clean kind of breaks. Then you can go and kind of color it in or whatever, rather than trying to draw it freehand straight into the app, because I just wasn't very good. So I've been kind of doing it that way, just still drawing it myself, but then kind of scanning in that pencil drawing and then using that as a guide, which I was found varying success with.
Well, that sounds wonderful. I'm going to ask you next time to maybe do a bit of a screenshot or screen recording rather, and to show us a bit more. So that brings our update to a conclusion for today. I'm going to put a short video on now to tell you more about our Join In From Home program. So just bear with me. Together 2012 is running a Join In From Home program from our website, together2012.org.uk. Click on the link at the top of the page, Join In From Home, to go straight to the main page, where you have a wide range of accessible, inclusive creative activities, mostly using things that you would already have at home. At the top of the page and throughout the pages, you will also see videos in British Sign Language to translate the site for deaf people. These videos can also be useful if you have difficulties reading and you simply want to hear more of the content. The Join In From Home programme is based on the activities that we would usually be running in East London. Dance Club usually meets on the fourth Monday of each month, and they create improvised masked dance for the screen. Here you can also see their very first film, where they simply made masks from paper plates, covered themselves with fabric, and just moved gently to the music. You can hear as well, there's an improvised soundtrack. So we're suggesting that you make a mask out of anything you can think of. It could be a cardboard box, a paper bag, a paper plate, as in here. Video yourself dancing in it and then share the video with us. We will show it on screen, and we will also enter it into the dance programme of our film festival, which we run every December. If you're temporarily or permanently chair-based, there's also a warm-up you can do here, created by our associate wheelchair dance company Folk in Motion, and that focuses on relaxing your upper body and improving your breathing. The Photographers and Filmmakers Club usually meets on the second Monday of each month. We're inviting you to make a video at home with the theme of home and share it with us. You can use a phone or a camera, make any kind of film you wish, including drama, documentary, dance, animation, artist films, comedy, and they'll be eligible for a CAT award at our December Film Festival. You can also watch with us from home. In addition to Together 2012 TV with Together Unlocked and other live streams, we have the Together Disability Film Festival highlights. Each year we run the International Together Disability Film Festival in Stratford, bringing together a wide range of films by disabled filmmakers, as well as films about disability issues and disabled people. We always publish the programmes online with links to the films that are freely available. So we invite you to revisit our recent film festivals from the comfort of your own home, and also to send us reviews of those films. And finally, you can sit back, relax, and enjoy videos of past live performances, artist talks, and creative workshops that we've produced in the past here. So, for example, from past festivals, we have documentation and films of creative dance workshops, street art performances, dances that the dance club have created, dance performances, and of course, we're continuing to add new activities on a regular basis.
We're not hearing you there, Ju, yet, I'm afraid. Some strange things going on with these electronics today.
There are. It seems to be not exactly less responsive, but also less reliable in the heat, as we know from the kind of week that we glowed through earlier in the summer. It's nice to have that opportunity to glow once more for one final burst of good weather. So that's our Join In From Home programme. One of the things we were talking about before we came on air was documenting lockdown. There's 2 online exhibitions which we're going to recommend on our highlights and links page. One, I believe, is the National Gallery, but Julie, who would be telling me, is still dealing with, I wouldn't say an emergency with the dog because something has upset it outside, but clearly whatever is upsetting it outside is continuing. So Julie is a bit occupied. But there's been a lot of publicity, and we will put the link onto the webpage around an exhibition where people were invited to send in their photographs of lockdown. 100, I don't know how they came down to 100, but 100 have been selected from thousands and thousands and thousands, and that online exhibition has just opened. At the same time, Disability Arts Online, which is, as you would expect, the National Disability Arts Online magazine, which has really come into its own this year, has been hosting artist blogs about lockdown and making, their work in response to lockdown. And we thought it was really interesting to sort of look at slightly different approaches. There's one that's on the BBC website this morning from the 100 pictures that really stuck in my mind, which is a child has used a camera to photograph mum cutting dad's hair with the dog's clipper, which is what I was using. And the sort of expression of horror on this man's face is very, very funny indeed. There's another very kind of striking image of a child kissing an old lady through the glass, which I think is that sort of contact that became so familiar. But I think with the Prime Minister talking about a second lockdown being possible and indeed likely unless mass testing comes along, and for all of us who are in the shielding group, and of course, I believe 10% of the population is currently subject to some kind of lockdown at the moment, not just the West Midlands or the North East and North West either. So we're still living through this. And I thought just to talk about, well, how do we document in the future? How do we document going forward? We've just recorded with Julie a very interesting interview with a photographer called Tim Boddy, and we're going to play that next Monday. And Tim was talking about how, and again, it's all been featured on the BBC website, Tim was going out gathering plants in his hours prescribed exercise that he was allowed to take, and then making prints out of them using emulsion that he created from vegetable juices. So the whole thing is absolutely fascinating.
Wow.
And again, I think he made over 157 prints and selected, I think it was either 15 or 17 to exhibit on the website. So I think there's that curating process. You know, how do you look at your own work and think this is what really represents lockdown to me, or this project to me? I've been joined, for anyone who's visually impaired, by Leonardo, who's a long-haired, fluffy black cat, who's decided that he's going to co-present instead of Julie. As you can imagine, we have no control over our animals during lockdown, so we have a page in the main menu, the same sub menu of the Together Unlocked TV page. As you will find highlights and links, you will actually find a whole page about the random animals that wander through. Leonardo, I think, is just taunting the vet, because could we find him and catch him on Saturday when he was due for his first vet's appointment since lockdown began? No, we could not. So I think he's just giving a little defiant wave, and he's gone off again, but he's not far away. So I suspect he may be back, or indeed another one. Now, Robin, I wanted to go on from the documentation. The challenge that we have, as we saw in the video, for everybody at home is to make a film with the theme of home. Now, that could be documenting lockdown, or it could be something completely different. And as we say in the film, it could be a documentary, it could be a drama, it could be a comedy, it could be an animation. I know you've mentioned before that you found this a real challenge, and I thought that was an interesting place to start. You know, where do the challenges lie in documenting our own environments, whether we're going to do that in a kind of documentary journalistic type fashion, or whether we're going to do something creative and dramatic from it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's about trying to work out a different methodology. I could write a poem or a book, or well, maybe a book would be a stretch, but you know, I could use words quite happily, but I don't want to. You know, it's about, you know, that's what I do normally, and you know, actually saying, well, okay, how else might I do this? You know, what does home mean to me? Where and I have something in mind, which, as I said, I can't yet share because it might just turn out to be complete and utter lunacy. But it's a different question, because most of my creative writing is about my encounters with the outside world, and if I'm going to write about home, it's about my encounters with my inside world. You know, and it's, you know, it's different because I don't have the same restrictions and things to write about. You know, when I'm writing disability arts songs or poems, it is about critiquing those moments of hilarity, frustration, protestation, barriers, failures. Whereas at home, you know, I live in an accessible bungalow, and so I don't have those. So it's fine. I've got to find ways that things that are interesting, because you know, I wouldn't want to foist anything on somebody else that I wasn't even interested in just because it happened to be about my home. And I think that's, you know, that's you know, maybe sometimes, you know, you do one, I as an individual look at some things and go, well, how was that interesting? And I wouldn't want anyone to be looking at my thing and going, well, and
You see,
so
I wonder whether as disabled people we're perhaps not as confident, which would be unsurprising. And one of the reasons I say that is I've been working very hard on the Together 2020 Disability History Month Festival. Viewers will know that I've been saying this for weeks, and there's a very simple reason for that. We have paused the work while the app is being piloted in Newham. You can't really do two projects in the same way at once, but we have a great festival coming up. But what struck me from all of the artists, whatever stage they are in their career and whatever age, is a real nervousness about going on video, and particularly to do anything live. And of course, that's the lifeblood of a festival. It's a live event. If it's going to be live on Zoom or live on YouTube, you know, it's still going to be live. And yet so many people don't seem to have any problem at all in getting in front of a camera and live streaming about all sorts of complete and utter rubbish. And here you are, a multi-gold medalist Paralympian, somebody with a massive profile in all sorts of fields, and you're still thinking nobody would really be interested. So I just question kind of whether, when you look at I mean, if I go back donkey's years, because I'm 58, and I go back to my PhD, one of the things that became apparent, and people have commented on, is men write about their school days and women don't. And if you look at biographies and autobiographies, I should say, men write about their school days in all sorts of detail, and they assume everybody's going to be interested, and women don't for the same reason. And it's such a, I mean, I ended up doing a memoir about my own school days just because there was nothing there. So yes, I do wonder whether there is an issue. And for everybody out there, if you've been thinking for some weeks or even for some months about sending us poems, films, or anything else, yes, I would be interested, very, very interested. So please do send them in. And I'm quite sure that I wouldn't be the only one. So, yes, I mean, I think there's that. I haven't done much documentation other than the live stream, which, of course, this is in a way our documentation. And I don't know how much of that has just been not so much deliberate that you don't want to remember it, but there's a sort of focus, I think, in some of the types of photographs that are being shown in this exhibition that I think I would be a little bit wary of in terms of my mental health. So I think that there is something around that. But then I do read a lot about COVID all the time because I have to do all the risk assessments for the organisation. And of course, we also want to be as well prepared and well briefed as we can be to feed into the app trial and the other work. But yes, that's where I kind of pull back, is just thinking, well, if I really start thinking about all the changes that we've had to make and all the different routines, maybe that's not the best place in the world for me to be right now. So if I was going to make a film about home, I think it would probably be, well, I was going to say very different, but in fact, for Newham Heritage Month, I did make a half-hour film about my home, which we discussed. We didn't show on air, but that was slightly different. It was looking at the building. But of course, that is another aspect. If you live in an interesting property, or yes, there's anything interesting about the history of your property, that is another subject, isn't it, for a film about home?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to not do it. I think I'm not even sure it's a lack of confidence because obviously we do all this and I go on the show. It's about how to make it present a reality, a snapshot or a series of snapshots of what something means. So I've looked at some of the photos that we're referring to, and for me, I thought I was noticing, it may well be incorrectly, but some of them were snapshots and some of them looked like composed photos. And it's for me, I was, there's a couple of the ones that were obvious snapshots. There's like one of a woman and a girl, black and white photo, sat on a balcony, and the balcony was about 18 inches wide and had its washing drying on it, but this glimpse of sunlight coming through. And it was an instant story. And there were others which I won't describe, but to me was sort of like, yeah, that's been made up to make a good photo. Do you know? And it's sort of, it's for me as I trying to work out that difference between presenting something that is telling a story or telling a story with a photo.
Yeah, a candid versus a created shot.
Thank you, Josh. Yes, very good.
Yes, now somebody I'd like to get on the show very soon is Aidan Mosby, and he's been producing some photographs around lockdown, which are very much, created by an artist. But yes, I won't kind of give away the whole pictures in advance, but I think they combine those things very, very nicely. You know, I don't think it has to be either or. But yes, I mean, I think when you look at 100 photos have been selected, it's like any art competition. You kind of look at it and you think, well, it's actually become almost random because there's so much good work, and yet the curators want variety, and quite right too. You can't give all of the focus to one group. So if you were going to make a film about home, or indeed if you are doing any documentation, Josh, what's your take on it? I mean, you're somebody who's effectively kind of just left one home to move back to another one.
Yeah, it's an amazing how much guff you accumulate. I had loads of stuff, far more stuff than I kind of realized, I think. I mean, we've talked a little bit about kind of the film that Dad's thinking about, and kind of ways we can get kind of certain shots and things. I had some thoughts. I was like, of things that I think would be cool, or shots that I think would be really good. Or I always have loads of really great kind of filmmaking ideas that I just have absolutely no way of executing, because I don't have kind of camera drones and things like that, or the ability to film it, I guess. I thought about it a little bit around kind of things that I could do. I wanted to kind of, these big kind of, because we live on a massive hill, these kind of sweeping shots kind of up and down the hill and kind of over the house and things. But yeah, it requires one, the owning of a very expensive camera drone. Even kind of the cheapest DJI one is kind of £500, I think, or something like that, which is far more than I kind of thought. I mean, it's an amazing piece of kit. I also lack the piloting ability, I imagine, to kind of to get the kind of cinematic effect that I want. I think I'd have to practice a little bit more, otherwise I feel like I just kind of fly it into a tarmac at about 40 miles an hour. But
throwing money in the wind would be quite a good
description. Yeah, I think that might be a very accurate description. I mean, they have all kind of amazing safety features, but I think if you do try and pilot into a tree, I don't know how much it's going to stop you.
It does sound like an interesting way of being able to safely leave the house, kind of watching through drone. But I have to point out there is Google Street View. So
it's not a cinematic though. I can't kind of edit that into some lovely sweeping shots. And I love drone photography.
But well, again, we have a wonderful artist doing something with Google Street Views for our festival, which I will tell you more about in due course. We're rushing towards the end of today's live stream. Coming up on Wednesday, we have our usual wonderful selection. We will have poetry from the Pop-Up Poetry Club, written just that morning, and some other poems too. We will have Virtual Nature Watch, this time again from Merlot up in Norfolk temporarily. So that will be something wonderful to look at. We have our Comedy Clockwork Paralympics. You will notice that my teddy bear has the gold medal this week, but we know the West Midlands will be working as hard as they can to get another one back. And much, much more, including Josh's reports into sports and gaming. There will also be App Watch. App Watch will take place every live stream until the launch, and then we will continue as a Monday feature where we will continue to update with you with the app, get your feedback, and critically tell you more about lots and lots and lots of art apps. Now, a new feature on a Monday, I'm glad to say, is a relaxing meditation with Arwa from our associate drama company, Act Up Newham. Act Up Newham are back rehearsing this week, getting ready for our festival, so we're going to be seeing much, much more of them over the autumn. Arwa has launched her own YouTube channel, so she is putting up a full yoga relaxation every Saturday. And we are going to have a little bit of a wind down from it because Monday is always the most stressful day of the week. So, on that happy note, we will relax with Arwa and leave you to relax too, and look forward to seeing you again on Wednesday.
first of all, we are done today in Deep Britain. In and out. Now, you are in your favorite place, wherever that may be. You're in your favorite place. There's nobody around you. It's just you and the sea. And this sea is the color yellow. It's a happy sea. It's a lucky sea. Begin and all your worries are in one hand. You are going to throw it into the sea. When you throw it into the sea, you feel happier. You feel relaxed. You feel like a new person. Now, imagine there is a rain. The rain is coming down on you. That is not cold water, it's hot water. It's falling down on you. It's falling. You are on your own. No one is with you. Tightly by yourself. The rain is coming down, down, and then it gets very heavier. Down, down, down. But you are not afraid of the rain. You walk through the rain. Many trees are in your way to you. Put them out of the way. And then you reach to an island. An island of pictures. Pictures of you when you are happy, when you are sad, when you are feeling emotional. You look through the pictures. It reminds you of the good old days. Before the lockdown. You sit on the island in front of the sea. Now it's not raining. But you see a big sunset in front of you. So you get your pad and your pen out, and you are going to draw the sunset. And you are feeling happier. See, all your worries are in the sea. They're not in your head anymore. So when you are feeling sad, even when you are feeling happy, just let them know to go back to that picture of you in front of the sea, in front of the huge sea. Take a final deep in and out.